Welcome to Live Daf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem, welcome back to today's Daf, which is Eruvin Daf Kuf Dalet. We are at the Mishnah, 6 lines from the top, and resuming our discussion regarding various Isuri D'Rabbanan which were suspended in the Beis HaMikdash for the sake of the Karbonos, Ein Shavus B'Mikdash. And the Mishnah will provide us with several examples of a Shavus D'Rabbanan which was not applied in the Beis HaMikdash, as the Mishnah. Number 1, Boizkin Melach. They may go ahead and crush and spread salt al gabi kevish throughout the ramp leading up to the Mizbeach b'shul shliach liku, to avoid slippage due to the rainwater, due to grease or fat that was present there. So you can go ahead and spread the salt, and that's something which is unique to the Beis HaMikdash, and it was not allowed outside of the Beis HaMikdash, as will be explained in our Gemara. So that's number 1. This Shavuos was suspended in the Beis HaMikdash. Number 2, u'mimalin miboir hagoyla. They can go ahead and draw water from this boir, this well, boir hagoyla, which was in the Beis HaMikdash, or from the boir hagodol, a different type of well, begalgal, using a wheel, a pulley system, which was generally not allowed on Shabbos. So when it comes to these wells which were in the Beis HaMikdash, you can use a galgal b'Shabbos. And once again, we suspended the Shavus D'Rabbanan, being that it's in the Beis HaMikdash. Boir hagoyla was a well which was present in a room in the Beis HaMikdash. Boir hagodol was actually used for the sake of lowering the kior within it. The kior was the container which contained water placed in the azara, and it would become pasul balina if it remains overnight outside of the ground area. So it would have to be lowered within the ground, on the ground, be connected to the water below, in order to avoid the water within the kior to become pasul. So that was the point of the boir hagodol, and we can use a pulley system to lower that kior within it and draw water using the pulley system. There's no concern because we're speaking about the Beis HaMikdash. Concludes the Mishnah, likewise we can draw water using a galgal from a very specific well called the Be'er Hakar, which was actually a natural spring-fed well, and you can use a galgal to draw water from there, B'Yom Tov, specifically on Yom Tov, as the Gemara will explain for us. Continues the Gemara. Ramile Rav Ika mi Pashrunya l'Rav. So Rav Ika from the town of Pashrunya asked Rav a question. Tanan, we just learned in our Mishnah, Boizkin melach al gabi kevish. You can spread salt over the ramp leading up to the Mizbeach, b'shvil shelo yachliku, to avoid slippage. B'migdash in. That's only because it's in the Beis HaMikdash. But it can't be done outside the Beis HaMikdash. That's what the Mishnah seems to be saying. But we have a kash from a brisa which seems to allow even outside the Beis HaMikdash. If we have a courtyard which became muddied and full of puddles due to the influx of rainwater, maybe teven, you can bring hay, you can bring straw, and spread it over the water to absorb it. Apparently, spreading material over the floor is mutter, even outside the Beis HaMikdash. Says the Gemara, there's a difference between teven and salt. Shani teven d'lo mevatale. Teven is different because it's not something which he nullifies. It's not something which he intends on leaving on the ground. And since it's not batal there, there's no concern of malacha, because the concern here would be perhaps he's going to be straightening out, smoothing out the uneven floor. But that's only if he's mevatal there. And therefore it results in a malacha of boina. But if he's not planning on leaving it there, plans on picking it up afterwards and feeding it to his animal, etc., then since it's not batal, there's no malacha whatsoever involved. Therefore, there's no concern even outside the Beis HaMikdash. In contrast to salt, which becomes sullied and unsuitable for further use once it's traveled upon. So generally, a person is just mevatlet there. Therefore, we're concerned that he is going to be mevatlet, and that results in a malacha of binyan because it becomes part of the ground surface. And since it's evening it out, he did a malacha of boina. Therefore, since we're concerned about that possibility of bittul to the ground, Chacham disallowed that on account of a shvus, and that shvus applies outside the Beis HaMikdash, but not within it. Let's see Rashi inside. So off to the right, if we drop down about 6 lines, So we have the Rashi beginning with the word Gemara. Mipashrunya, so this was Rav Ika Mipashrunya from this town, this Makim, who asked the Kasha. In our Mishnah, we learned that we cannot spread salt outside the Beis HaMikdash, whereas the Brisa allows spreading the hay. Umeradaba shetechba, you can go spread it out over the puddle to absorb water. The Gemara answers that Tevin is different. So malachahu b'Shabbos davik kibinyan. There's no concern about a shvuy gumis flattening out an uneven surface, which is considered a malacha of bain. There's no concern. Why? The midah the chazal machal behema oiletit hachaymis, because hay which is suitable for animal feed or to be used as an ingredient to produce mortar for construction, he's not going to nullify, he's not going to leave it there. In contrast to salt of a melach, once it becomes trampled upon, it's no longer suitable. We presume that he's being mavatled, and due to that possibility, we're concerned about that possibility, and therefore we never allow it. When Medina Asr, outside the Beis HaMikdash, it's Asr, is considered to be a shvus. However, in the Beis HaMikdash itself, assuming he's not going to be mavatled, there's no concern here. We don't apply a shvus, and therefore you could even spread salt over the kevesh in the Beis HaMikdash. Continues the Gemara. Amalei Rav Acha B'rei Rav Vashi. So yes, Rav Vashi as follows. The Mishnah tells us you can spread salt in the Beis HaMikdash. Hai melech chadami. What are we speaking about here with this salt spreading? Idem of vatli, if his intention is to nullify, to leave it there for long term, so it becomes part of the ground surface, part of the building. Kam Maisa Abinyan, in which case he's adding a layer to the existing structure. He's enlarging the Beis HaMikdash, which one cannot do. The Beis HaMikdash is meant to present itself in a very specific way. It's meant to be designed very accurately the way Hashem instructed. Everything is written, everything is from Hashem, everything was presented to me by Hashem, the exact design of the Beis HaMikdash. So how can we go ahead and add to the structure of the Beis HaMikdash? So pouring salt in a manner where he's being mavatled is actually increasing the size of the kevesh, which is part of the mizbech, which is part of the Beis HaMikdash. So that's difficult to understand. How is that allowed? And if he's not going to be mavatled to the kevesh, fine, so he didn't add to the structure, so that concern doesn't apply. But there's another concern called havi chatzitza. Isn't it posing a barrier between the feet of the Kehanim, which are meant to have direct contact with the surface of the floor of the Beis HaMikdash? And the salt is coming in between. So either or, we have a kasha. If he's going to be a vatlet, then he's changing the configuration of the kevesh. If he's not going to be a vatlet and it's considered to be a separate, independent entity, the salt that is, then isn't that creating a chatzitza? Says the Gemara, he wasn't mevatlet. Why is there no chatzitza concerned? We're speaking about spreading the salt for the sake of the kehanim, or transporting the parts of the karbonis over to the ramp. The lav avodah, which is not considered to be part and parcel of the avodah. The makter, the ivarim on the mizbech is, but bringing them to the kevesh is not. It's different than transporting the dam, which is a avodah of halacha, because the dam of the carbon is really the integral kapara. It's the most vital and crucial part of the carbon, the dam. But when it comes to the portions of the actual animal, that's not so crucial, and transporting them is not really considered to be integrally an avodah. Therefore, chatzitza doesn't pose a concern. Veloy? Really? Is that so? V'oksiv, doesn't the pasuk say, V'hikrev ha'koyin es ha'koil, V'iktar mizbecha. The koyin will bring everything over and be maktan the mizbech. And what is this referring to? Obama Meir, we learned, Zoy lochase evarim lekevish. It's a reference to transporting the parts of the behemoth, of the carbon, over to the kevish. Apparently that too is considered to be a avodah. Therefore, chatzitza would interfere. Ela rather say as follows: they spread the salt for the sake of the kahanim transporting the logs over to the wood arrangement on the mizbech. That certainly is not really considered a true avodah. In that case, a chatzitza would not pose a concern. So, when it comes to spreading salt, theoretically we can have three concerns. number one, a Shabbos concern, for the fact that he's smoothing out the surface of the ground, evening out the pets, a Shvui Gumes, which is considered an avodah. However, in this case where he's not being mevatalit to the ground, that's not considered to be binyan. So that concern is off the table. What about the fact that he's adding to the pre-existing structure, to changing the design of the kevish? Here as well, if he's not being mevatalit, it's not becoming an integral part of the structure, and there's no concern. And finally, why he doesn't impose a chatzitza? Because it's going to be used specifically in a non-avodah context. Dorash Ravas Rava announced, this is the brayso we learned earlier, a chatzah which experienced an influx of rainwater, maybe teven umiradaba. He brings some hay, spreads it over the water to absorb it. How can you allow this to be done in all circumstances? Haven't we learned in a brayso, when he spreads the hay over the water, he meant to do it in a very specific manner, differently than the way it's ordinarily done during the week. He can't spread his hay, pouring it from a basket, from a box, which is the way it's done during the weekday. It's derech choil. Rather, you meant to deviate, do it differently than the weekday manner. Ela b'shuli kupa. You can spread it using the bottom of the box. Rashi says that you have the bottom which broke off on the box. So use that to transport the hay and spill it out, which is different than the way it's ordinarily done. So you have to be careful not to do it in a weekday manner. So how can you just allow it to be done in any manner? So when Rava heard this, Hadar Oikim Rava Amoir Alei. So Rava went ahead and he repositioned the announcer in front of him, V'darash, and he told him to convey the following message: Dvarim shamarti lefneichem tosen biyadi. The words which I have told you earlier were an error. Baram, rather, kach amru mishum Rabbi Lezer. The following was said in the name of Rabbi Lezer. When he spreads the teven, he shouldn't do it spilling it out of the basket or the box, rather using the bottom of the broken box, which indicates that it's different than the weekday activity. He's doing it Shabbosdik, and only in that manner is it mutter. Okay, some conclusion regarding spreading some type of substance to avoid slippage. So it depends what we're using. If it's salt, then outside the mikdash you can't do it because there's a concern that perhaps he's going to be mevatlet it, which will result in a malacha. So even if he has no such intention, there's a shvus which disallows that. The shvus doesn't apply in the Beis HaMikdash, and therefore it's allowed, provided he's not going to be mevatlet, and provided it's only being used in a non-avodah context. For instance, the transportation of the logs to the mizbech, which is not avodah, and therefore there's no chatzitza concern. Teven can be spread whether in or out of the Beis HaMikdash, provided he does it derech shinoi, differently than the way it's ordinarily done. Continues the Gemara. Mishnah told us we can go ahead and use a galgal, this pulley system, to draw water from these very specific wells in the Beis HaMikdash, but it cannot be done outside the Beis HaMikdash, and the Gemara now will expound on this halach. Ula ikla libei Rav Menashe. Ula visited the home of Rav Menashe. Asau Gavra, so his fellow came along, Taraf Abava. He knocked on the door, and he produced a sound by doing so. Amar, so Ula responded, Man hai, who is this fellow? Lischol Gufe, his body should become desecrated, he should suffer punishment. Why? Because he's been Chal Shabbos, producing a sound on Shabbos. Amalei Rab, so Rabbi responded, that's not a concern, because it's a non-rhythmic sound. It's not a musical sound. Chacham only made an isser if he's producing a musical sound. But just to knock on the door without rhyme or rhythm, there's no concern there. Let's see Rashi inside. Down by the wide lines. So on the first wide line, it says Rashi, Taraf above. This fellow came along and knocked on the door. Hikish ala delas begroifay. He knocked his fist on the door of Ishmiya Koil, and it resulted in a sound being produced. The Kamachal Shabbat, Su'ula was very dissatisfied. He's being Mechal Shabbos, the Kosavar, because Ula held, Kol Eiludi Kol Aser. Any sound which is produced, which emanates from a person's action is considered to be moiled koil and is asr on Shabbos. Whereas Rabbah responded, no, it's only asr b'koil shel shir. Hanishma kein shir. It sounds like a song, like music, b'ne'ima v'nachas, pleasant with rhythm, and it has that musical flavor to it. But just banging around is not considered to be asr. Apparently, Ula held that even if it's a non-musical sound, you can't produce sound on Shabbos. It's similar to the halacha that you can't produce a reach on Shabbos. You can't produce any type of new entity on Shabbos. Chachamim did not allow a person to get involved in creating something new, which appears like malacha. So, just creating a sound, even if it's a non-musical sound, would be asr as well. Whereas Rabbah responded that actually the issue is not because he's producing something new, it's because he's getting involved in music. And in Rashi, Maseches Beitza actually explains that there's a concern that this might lead him to go and adjust, repair a musical instrument to accompany him. So getting involved in creating music on Shabbos and Yom Tov is problematic due to the concern that it might lead him to get a musical instrument involved. And fixing a musical instrument can involve a malach. Therefore, says Rabbah, this halacha is strictly to a koil shel shir, a musical sound. Continues the Gemara in the first white line. Abai asks a kasha from a brisa, which indicates that even a non-musical sound cannot be produced on Shabbos. Malin b'dyupi. So one can go ahead and draw liquid out of a container using this dyupi. Dyu is 2p mouths, meaning it's a siphon. It's a triangle-shaped double pipe, and you insert one of the tips into the container, and you suck the air out of the other side. You draw the liquid up past the halfway point, and that creates a suction effect where the liquid gets drawn into the vacuum and proceeds to be emptied from the container. So one can engage in this procedure on Shabbos. Umatifin miyarek. Likewise, a person could drip some liquid out of this miyarek. Rashi describes this as some type of funnel where you would fill it with liquid. The bottom had a hole where it can drip out, and then you go uncover the top, which encourages the liquid to drip from the bottom. So you can do this l'chayla b'Shabbos for the sake of soothing and calming a unwell person. So you place a metal pan underneath the drip, and that dripping sound has a soothing effect for the unwell fellow, and perhaps this dripping sound applies to the first halacha as well, with the siphon, where you would place something underneath and have the liquid drip out. In any case, the Brisa tells us this dripping sound is only allowed in the case of necessity for a chayla. L'chayla in, only for an unwell person, but for a healthy person you can't do that. Says the Mahichi Dami, what type of a sound are we speaking about? Lav, denayim, v'kaboy dilitar. Perhaps we're speaking that the chayla is asleep, and you're doing this to wake him up. So you're doing it pleasantly, in order not to frighten him. And we're speaking about a non-rhythmic sound, not a musical, not a beat or a tempo that's being produced. And still we say that it's only allowed for a chayla. Shma mina eludi kala aser. Apparently, producing any type of sound is aser on Shabbos. Says the Merloi, no. We're speaking about actually a rhythmic sound that's being produced. The tir, because this chayla is actually awake, and we want him to fall asleep. He's trying to fall asleep, and this is a manner to get him to fall asleep by dripping this liquid in a rhythmic, musical fashion, the mishtama kekola de zamzumi, which will sound like the sound of these cymbals. So it has an instrumental sound to it. And that's what he's trying to do. And that's why we only allow for the chayla, but otherwise, it would be asa. Because we're speaking about a koil shal shir. But just a random sound, that would be mutter. So Abai asked him another kasha from a brisa where, once again, it seems that any type of sound production is asur on Shabbos. The person is securing his produce, protecting them from the birds, or his pumpkins from the animals. So you can watch them in the manner which he's accustomed to watching, can do that on Shabbos without any concern. Uvad shlo yisapik, provided he doesn't clap his hands to produce sound to scare off the animals, or bangs his hand on his body, on his heart, or dances to create sound, the way he does it during weekdays. My time, what is the reason? Apparently, because sound production is asur. This fellow who's producing a sound is asur because you're not allowed to produce sound on Shabbos, even if it's a non-musical sound. Amar Bar Yaakov, no, it's nothing to do with sound production. The reason here is Gzeira Shamiyitot Tzror. We're concerned if he gets overly involved in keeping the animals at bay, perhaps he'll pick up a pebble and toss it for Amis into Rabbim and do a malach. Says the Gemara, Ve'elaha Damar Vidam Rav. But if that's the case, how are we going to understand the statement that Rabbi Yehuda said in the name of Rav? Noshem hamasachkos begoizim. Women who are engaged in playful activity of rolling these nuts across the floor, asur, they can't do that on Shabbos. Why? My time or why? Lav the kamelut kala. Apparently because they're producing a sound which is produced by the nuts colliding with each other. V'kol oiludi kala asur. And sound production on Shabbos is asur, even if it's a non-musical, non-sing-song sound. Says the Gemara, no, actually not. The concern is not due to sound production, but rather because they might be tempted to smooth out this uneven floor to enhance their activity, that's their game. And therefore, they can't engage in this type of activity because a shvui gumis is certainly a malacha. Because if you don't follow this approach and attribute this reason to the halacha, how are we going to understand the following halacha? Ho damar Yehuda. Where Yehuda tells us, Noshem masachkes v'tapuchim. Also, likewise, if women are engaged in rolling apples playfully, they can't do that as well. Now, over there, what type of sound is being produced? Apparently, the collision of the apples doesn't produce much of a sound, and there's no sound production. So why would it be asur? Ella, rather, we prove from here, the concern is unrelated to sound production, but rather dilma asur l'shvui guma is the concern that they might go ahead and smooth out this uneven floor to enable for their game. Tananu, we learned in our very Mishnah, Memalin b'beira goyla u'beira godel b'galgal b'Shabbos. Our Mishnah tells us that when it comes to filling water, you can only draw with a pulley system, a galgal, if the bor is in the Beis Hamikdash, like the bor hagoyla, the bor hagodol. The Migdash in only strictly in the Beis Hamikdash, we allow for that. But Medina loy, but not outside of it. What is the reason that you can't fill with a wheel on Shabbos? My time, why? Lav mishum dailudi kolav asur. Apparently because it's creating a sound. This is a creaking of this pulley. The Gemara Talmud tells us that when they would lower the kier, bring the kier up from the bar using this pulley, the creaking sound can be heard all the way to the town of Yericho, which was very far from Yerushalayim. So apparently that's a concern due to the koil that's being produced. So in the Beis Hamikdash, the Chacham did away with the shus, but outside this Hamikdash you can't do that. Apparently even a non-sing-song sound, even a creaking sound, can't be produced on Shabbos. Says no, loy, has nothing to do with that. The reason why you can't use a pulley system to draw water on Shabbos is on account of another concern. Gzeira Shemiyam Male Ligi Nasser Lucharvasai. We're concerned due to the fact that this pulley system makes it very, very convenient drawing of water, of large quantities of water. You may be tempted to actually draw water and use it for his farming purposes, which is a malach on Shabbos. Let's see Rashi all the way on the bottom. The bottom line, Oiludi Kola. So the Gemara figured that using the pulley system creates a sound. Shagalgal mashmir koil, this pulley system produces a sound. The Gemara says actually it's unrelated. Rather, the concern is Gzeira Shemiyam Male. He might fill some water to use it for his garden. Why? Since it makes very easy and convenient use. He may come to actually draw large quantities and use it to water his garden. It was churva, which was a ruins, and there are some plants planted there. So in any case, he's going to use it for his farming purposes, which is a malacha. Continues the Gemara, 3 lines from the bottom. Ameimar shara limimla. begilgula b'mechayza. A member allowed the residents of mechayza to draw water from a well using this galgal. Omar, my time a gazar rabban. What was the basis for the gzer of the rabbanon? If a concern that a person may fill large quantities to be used for his farming purposes for the gina and the churva. Now in mechayza, which is an urban area, hacha over here, we don't have these farming areas, and therefore there's no concern. However, once I may noticed that during the weekdays they were engaged in an activity of soaking the flax in water. Asalu. Now he figured we don't allow them to draw water using a galga because since it allows for easy and convenient drawing of large quantities, perhaps they're going to use it even on Shabbos for soaking of flax, which is a malacha, and therefore he disallowed the use of the pulley system on Shabbos. Continues the Gemara, be'erakar. Mishnah told us that not only can you draw water using a galgal from these water holes in the Beis HaMikdash, but you can also draw water with a galgal from the be'er hakar, provided that it's on Yom Tov. We want to explain the context of this halacha. My be'er hakar, exactly, is this be'er hakar? Omashmu. Bar shehikru aleh dvarim vituru. It's a bar where many words were applied. There was much debate going on to allow its use out of necessity, and at the end they actually allowed its use. Meaning they allowed to use a pulley system to draw large quantities from this very specific bar. As the Gemara will explain why. So be'er hakar, Rashi says, hikru is lashon kriya, calling out. They applied arguments and debates till they finally allowed use of this be'er with a galgal on Yom Tov. Meisve. I have a kash from a brisa which says, loikala boiros hakaris etiru. They didn't allow all types of boiros hakaris, only this one is specific. Now, if kairos, hikru, is in reference to a very specific well, due to the fact that there was debate going on, there were discussions about it, what does the brisa mean? They didn't allow all the boiros hakaris, only this one. There's only one in existence. If the meaning of hakar is because they applied words to it, my zubavad. What does the brisa mean? They didn't allow all the other ones except for this one. There was only one in existence. Ella Amar of Nachmar Yitzchak. Actually, hakar doesn't mean debates and discussions. Rather, it means be'er mayim chayim. It's referring to a well which draws from its own source. It's a spring of water. Shanamar b'kahakir bir meimeh. So Rashi explains that kahakir means it's a water source. It's a fresh spring. Kahakir is a lashon of mokar, of a source. So be'er hakar is referring to a fresh spring. It was a water hole, but it wasn't just a containment of water. It was actually a source of water. So now we understand the brisa that this allowance wasn't applied to all boiros which were spring water. It was only to this specific one, as the Gemara right now will explain. Gufa, so we just learned, loikala boiros hakaris hetir. They didn't allow drawing in this manner from all these types of wells. Elazar bilvad, only this one is specific. Why? Because when the Klal Yisrael came up from Golas and they came to be Oile Regel on Yom Tov to Yerushalayim, there was a dire need for water, a lack of proper water supply. Chanu aleh. So the Yidden encamped next to this bear, and out of necessity, the Nevi'im which were amongst them, Rashi says, it's referring to Chagai, Zechariah, Malachi, applied a special heter, allowed them to draw large quantities using the pulley system out of necessity. Now, once that heter was applied, we know the Chacham don't rescind a heter which was applied, and therefore that heter remained throughout all time. And it wasn't only specific to this specific era where the Nevi'im allowed it, but that heter remained even beyond Ela Minig Avos Biyadim. The custom of their tradition of their ancestors remained in their hands, meaning they continued with this heter all throughout. And therefore, the Mishnah tells us you can draw from this specific bar even using a pulley system, provided it's on Yom Tov, because the original heter was only a heter for the sake of Yom Tov, so that specific heter remains throughout. So in conclusion, the second part of the Mishnah allowed us to draw with a galgal, a pulley system, a wheel, provided it's in the Beis Hamikdash. But otherwise you cannot, and the reason is because we're concerned due to the convenience. He might go ahead and use it for his farming purposes. And the Mishnah concluded that likewise you can draw water with a galgal from this very specific be'er hakar. You can do this on Yom Tov, not on Shabbos, because the original heter was for this specific be'er and specifically for Yom Tov. Continues the Mishnah. We know that a person who is tamei may not enter the Beis Hamikdash. Likewise, a person can't bring a kli which is tamei. Certainly cannot introduce a sheretz, one of the 8 creatures, which when they die, they are tamei, they impart tumah. So these things may not be found in Beis Hamikdash. And when they're there, one is obligated to remove them. Says the Mishnah, sheretz shenimsa b'mikdash, a sheretz which was found in the Beis Hamikdash, a dead sheretz. And we're speaking about on Shabbos. Once again, this is the context of ein shvus b'mikdash. So all of the sheretz is muktzah. We can go ahead and remove it from the Beis Hamikdash even on Shabbos, because the Chacham suspended the Isser Shvus for the sake of the Beis Hamikdash. So how do we go about it? It says the Mishnah, Koyin meitziyoi b'myanei. The Koyin should remove the sheretz using his belt. So although he's actually making the beged, the bigdei kahuna, which is kaddish, he's making a tamei by having it come into contact with the sheretz. So certainly he himself needs to avoid touching the sheretz as a kohen, but we prefer that he takes his belt and uses it as a vehicle to remove the sheretz. Why should lo l'shayis es hatumah? So as not to have the tumah linger here. So although he's increasing tumah, but it's more important to get rid of the tumah as soon as possible, even at the expense of making his belt tummy. Divrei Rabbi Yehuda break. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, no. Wait around until you find a proper vehicle, proper utensil to remove the sheretz. B'tzvah shel eitz. Wait until you find a wooden tongue, a wooden pliers, which is not going to be makabel tumah, it doesn't have a clay kibble. So rather, wait for that. Then use your belt, shaloi l'rabes es hatumah, in order to avoid increasing tumah. So according to Rabbi Yehuda, the factor of containment overrides the factor of expediting the removal of the tumah, whereas according to Rabbi Yechon Breaker, doing it quickly is more important than containment. So even though he's going to be metame, his belt in the process, we're not concerned with that, as long as he gets rid of the tumah at the earliest opportunity. Continues the Mishnah. Okay, so we found the sheretz in the Beis Hamikdash on Shabbos, and we do away with muktzah in order to remove these sheretz. Now, where in the Beis Hamikdash was this sheretz found? We know that the Mishnah in Kelim, beginning of Mesachas Kelim, describes various degrees of kedusha which were found in different areas of the Beis Hamikdash. So the question is, what justifies muktzah? Where is the sheretz found? Anywhere in the Beis Hamikdash, or perhaps in the most kaddish part of the Beis Hamikdash? From where? From which location within the Beis Hamikdash can you remove the sheretz on Shabbos, even at the expense of muktzah? So we have machlekes. If it's found in the hechel, from the ulam, which was before the hechel, mizbeach, or even if it's between the mizbeach and the ulam, which contains a higher level, a higher degree of kedusha, according to him, only in these locations. But if it's beyond that, meaning it's further out, for instance in the Azara, the fact that the Azara has a lower degree of kedusha, due to that we don't allow, doesn't justify doing muktzah to remove the sheretz. Rabbi Kiva Eimer, he says even in the Azara, so even if it's there, that justifies muktzah, you meant to remove it on Shabbos. Kol makam shchayavan al zoyne kuris. Anywhere within the Beis Hamikdash, meaning even including the Azara, which is a place where if a person is tamei who enters that area, what happens? He's liable to kuris if he does it bizaden b'mezid, willingly, and if it's b'shegig, he brings a chatas. So from any of those areas, they have enough degree, level of kedusha that requires him to remove the sheretz even on Shabbos. Misham matziin oisei. So according to Rav Kiva, that includes even the azor. According to Rav Shimon ben Nanas, azor is not included in this allowance. Ushar kal makaimis, if the sheretz was found anywhere else, meaning whether it's in the azor according to the first shita or in other areas of the Beis Hamikdash, for instance in the lishkos, in the side rooms, according to Rav Kiva, which possess a lower degree of kedusha. In that case, we don't allow muktzah to be overridden for the sake of removal of the sheretz. Rather, you leave it there, koifenel of psachler, you overturn a bowl to contain it, prevent others from touching it. You leave it until Matzah Shabbos, and then you remove the sheretz. Concludes the Mishnah. Reb Shimon Omer, mokim she'yitir l'cha chachamim. Whenever the chacham allowed you, they granted something which really belonged to you. Because they only allowed you when it's based on a shvus. This seemingly cryptic statement of Shimon is really unrelated to the first part of the Mishnah, and we expounded upon in the Gemara. Says the Gemara, Omar Av Tavi Bar Kisna, Omar Shmuel, Hamachnes, Tmei Sheretz L'Migdash Chayiv. A person should bring something which came into contact with the sheretz, a kli which touched the sheretz, which in itself becomes an avatuma, a rishon l'tumah. If a person brings it into the Beis Hamikdash, he's chayiv. Rashi says he's chayiv echatas or karas. The Hagoyis Hagra, the Vilna Gaon on the side says evidently it's a mistake because it's very clear from other areas that even Rashi himself writes other places that at most is only a chiv malchus. So in any case, if a person brings this thing which is tamei into the Beis Hamikdash, is chayiv. That's something which came into contact with the sheretz. But sheretz atzmai potter. Should you bring the actual sheretz itself in the Beis Hamikdash, he's potter. So in HaTorah, there's no chiv to even remove the sheretz from the Beis Hamikdash. In the Rabbanan there is, but there's no chiv in HaTorah. And if a person does it, doesn't get an einish. That's interesting that the source of tumah itself seems to have a leniency, which the item which received tumah from that source doesn't have. So it seems that the thing that came into contact with the tumah, to which the tumah extended itself to, that represents the activation, the extension of the tumah, whereas the sheretz itself is just the dormant entity, and in a way it's more lenient than the kli which took the tumah over from him. We find a similar concept in the Gemara Pesachim Daf Samach Tes Amanal, that a person can bring the mace itself into the Machne Levia, into the place where the Levim camped, as we know that Moshe Rabbeinu brought the Atzmais Yosef to the Machne Levia, but a person that came into contact with the mace must leave the Machne Levia. So we see that the mace itself, the source of tumah, has a leniency which the Tamei mace doesn't have. Okay, so that's Shmuel's Chiddush, that the sheretz itself, min HaTorah, does not entail chiv. Person brings it in, he doesn't get an einish, and there's no chiv to remove it. My timer. So what's the reason for this? Meaning, what's the source? Where do we find a makar to this halach from a pasuk? Amakra, the pasuk says. The pasuk is speaking about getting rid of things which are tamei, sending them out of the Beis Hamikdash, mizachar and the keva, whether a man or woman, to shalecha, he meant to send them out when they're tamei. And we learn from here that it only applies to something which is similar in nature to a human being. Only something which has the ability to become tar by immersion in mikvah. For instance, a person. So since he has that ability, he has a stringent form of tumah, which can be removed by going to the mikvah. That represents a higher level of tumah, and has to be sent away from the Beis Hamikdash. Yotze sheretz she'ela tahara, as opposed to a sheretz who cannot become tar. There's no way to be matar the sheretz, and therefore is not included in this requirement. Does not need to be sent away from the Beis Hamikdash. So that's Shmuel's chiddush. Leiba Messiah, perhaps we can have a raya to support Shmuel's halacha from the following brayso, which says Mizachar nekevet shalecho. This is that pasuk we just mentioned. Prat likli it's coming to rule out a kli an earthenware keli. Divrei Glili, he maintains that it's this similar to a person, and therefore does not need to be sent away from the Beis Hamikdash. Min HaTorah. My time, what's the reason for this? Apparently, it's because the kli cheres does not have the ability to become tar. by being placed in a mikveh. The only way to be metar cheres is by breaking it. So therefore, since it's not similar to an adam, to a zachar and a keva, which have the ability to be tevel in a mikveh, therefore the klicheres does not have this requirement to be sent away from the Beis Hamikdash, and likewise the sheretz, who also doesn't possess this option, this ability of tahar in a mikveh, does not have to be sent out from the Beis Hamikdash. So this is a support to Shmuel. No. Actually, the reason why we exclude klicheres is not due to its deficiency, for lack of ability to be tevel in a mikveh, but rather it's due to the similarity between itself and the person. Misha nasa avatuma, just as in Zachar and Keva, which are sent out of the Beis Hamikdash, and that's because they can become a stringent form of tamei and avatuma. Yotza klicheres, as opposed to klicheres she'en nasa avatuma, which can never attain this high level of tumah. Rashi explains the background of this halacha. A cheres can never become a avatuma, and since it doesn't have that ability to attain this high level of tumah, it's dissimilar to a person, and does not have the same chiyuv, the same din, when a Torah does not have to be sent out of the Beis Hamikdash. So that's specific to klicheres, as opposed to a sheretz, which certainly has already attained and achieved this high level of tumah. It is in itself an avatuma. So perhaps it needs to be sent out of the Beis Hamikdash. There's no raya to Shmuel's halacha. Perhaps this halacha of Shmuel is actually dependent on a machlokes tanoim found in our Mishnah. The Mishnah says sheretz shemsa b'mikdash, a sheretz which was located in the Beis Hamikdash. We went to remove it even on Shabbos. We override the Isser Muktzah. And how do we go about removing the sheretz? We have machlokes. The first shita says kohen moitzia b'yamyanai. The kohen is meant to remove it using his belt if he has no other alternative, in order not to have the tumah linger around. So according to him, it appears that there's a real chiyuv min haTorah to remove the sheretz, and that's why we do it even at the expense of furthering the tumah, increasing the tumah, making his belt tumah. So apparently Rabbi Yehuda Kessler holds that indeed there is a chiyuv to remove the sheretz, and that's why we override the fact that he's going to be metame the aved and increase the tumah. That fact is overridden in the face of the requirement to remove the sheretz. That's his shita. Rabbi Yehuda b'tzvah shel eitz moitziyai. Wait around until you find this wooden tongue and use it to remove the sheretz. Shel rabis tumah, in order not to increase tumah, to expand the tumah. Apparently, he holds it's not so crucial. The removal of the sheretz is not really mandated min haTorah, and therefore, although midrabanan meant to remove it, but wait around until you can do it properly. Perhaps this is indeed the basis of the machlokes. The manda amar shaloi l'shahis. The first shita, which says use your belt in order not to have the tumah linger around any further, he holds it's so important to expedite the removal of the sheretz, because kasavar, he holds a machnas sheretz the mikdash chayiv. Person should bring the sheretz into the Beis Hamikdash is chayiv. So min haTorah is mandated to go remove it as soon as possible, even at the expense of increasing tumah. This is unlike Shmuel's halach. Uman the Amar. However, the other shita Rabbi Yehuda holds shel rabis tumah. Wait around until you can find the tongue. Don't increase tumah. He holds kasavar hamachnas sheretz the mikdash pata. Should a person brings their sheretz to Beis Hamikdash, she's potter. So since it isn't really such a chiyuv, there's no chiyuv at all in haTorah to remove the sheretz. Therefore, it's not important enough for us to allow him to go ahead and be matame his belt. Rather, wait around until he can do it properly. So evidently, the question of whether there's a chiyuv in haTorah to remove the sheretz from Beis Hamikdash or not is actually a machlokes tanoim. So the Maraloi, actually, it's unrelated. The Kuli Alma Chayiv perhaps all agree that if a person brings their sheretz into Beis Hamikdash, she's chayiv, unlike Shmuel Shita. And indeed, there is a very firm obligation to go and remove that sheretz as soon as possible. So, what is the basis of the machlokes in the Mishnah? The machlokes is as follows. It's a broad and general machlokes. What's more important? What takes priority? Expediting of the removal or containment of the tumah? Mar savar shehuya tumah adif. Rabbi Yehuda holds, we prefer that he leave the tumah around. Wait, in order not to increase and expand the tumah. Wait until you find a wooden utensil to remove it properly. That's more important. Contain the tumah. Takes priority. Umar savar fushi tumah adif. However, Rabbi Yehuda holds that increasing the tumah is actually preferred, so although it's at the expense of increasing tumah, that's better than having to sit around for a while and increasing the time, the duration of the tumah. So it's a general question. What's more important? What takes priority? Expedition of removal or containment of the tumah? Or perhaps all agree that one is chayav to remove the sheretz from the Beis Hamikdash min haTorah. So in summary, we learned that if a person finds a sheretz in the Beis Hamikdash, he's meant to remove it even on Shabbos. Now, in what manner does he remove it? We have a machlekes. According to Rabbi Yehuda Kessler, he removes it using his belt, because although he's increasing tumah, rather than do that, then have the tumah linger around and increase the duration of the tumah. Whereas Rabbi Yehuda holds, wait until you find the tzvas shel eitz, which is not makabel tumah. Do it properly, in order not to increase tumah. That's more important than doing it quickly. We learned that on Shabbos you can remove the sheretz, despite the fact that it's muktzah. Now, where in the Beis Hamikdash is the sheretz located, which would justify overriding muktzah for this purpose? Machlekes. According to Rav Shimon ben Nanas, well, in the Heichel, the Ulam, but not the Azara. According to Rav Akiva, even the Azara. And we learned that if a person brings something which is tummy into the Beis Hamikdash, he's chayiv, and he's required to remove it. But that only applies to an item that can become an avatuma, as opposed to klicheres, which cannot become an avatuma. According to Shmuel, only applies to something which can become tar in a mikveh, as opposed to the actual sheretz itself, which doesn't have that feature, and therefore there's no chiyuv for bringing it into the Beis Hamikdash. Okay, time for a brief chazara of today's daf. We learned about 3 different types of Isurei D'Rabbanan, shvus, which were not applied in the Beis Hamikdash. We learned about spreading salt over the ramp. We learned about drawing water using this pulley system. And finally, removing the sheretz, which is muktzah from the Beis Hamikdash. All these 3 things are allowed, because ein shvus v'mikdash. Okay, let's begin discussing the first halacha, spreading some sort of substance over the floor to avoid slippage. So when it comes to using salt, that cannot be used outside the Beis Hamikdash. We're concerned that you might be mevatel it there. And by evening out the uneven floor, he's doing binyan. In the Beis Hamikdash he can use it, provided he's not being mevatel it. And they're only using it in the context of a non-avoida activity, like bringing the eitzim to the mizbeach, and therefore there's no chatzitza concern. Teven you can spread regardless whether in or out of the Beis Hamikdash, provided he does it a bit differently than the way it's done during the week. Let's proceed to the next halacha regarding drawing water with this galgal. So Gemara tells us that although the isser of producing sound on Shabbos only pertains to a koil shel shir, a musical sound, a rhythm, a beat, but just a non-musical sound being produced is not considered to be usser. So the reason why you can't draw water with this galgal is not due to the creaking sound emanating from the pulley system. Rather, the Gemara tells us there's another concern that perhaps due to the convenience involved, you may inadvertently draw a large quantity of water and use it for his farming purposes, which is a malacha. Therefore, this Issa D'Rabbanan, the shvus, applies to any be'er, any bur outside of Beis Hamikdash. However, in the Beis Hamikdash itself, the shvus was not applied. We learned about another type of be'er, this be'er hakar, where there was a special heter on Yom Tov. And finally, we learned about removing the sheretz, which was found in Beis Hamikdash. We have machlekes regarding the exact manner in which way he's meant to remove it, whether using his belt, whether waiting for the tzvas shel eitz to contain the tumah. And then we concluded that actually the machlekes here is revolving around the question of what's preferred: expediting the removal, speed, or the containment of the tumah.